What's going on, guys? ShadowNinja here, and today I want to talk about some Battlefield information. Now, we got some videos to make on the news. There is a recent article from Tom Henderson talking about some things in the game. I'm not going to talk about that in this video. I want to talk about Zampella. I want to talk about the Investors Day stuff, break down what we saw, and kind of talk about how the tone, I think, is changing for this franchise in a good way. That doesn't mean I'm going to change how I feel about the franchise right now. And that's pretty much, I won't get hyped, I won't get excited, I won't feel committed to recommend or anything with this franchise until they prove me wrong with a great game at launch. It works, it is true to the franchise core, and I'm sure a lot of longtime Battlefield fans will understand that. Some newer people that didn't get a chance to play 3 and 4, again, I don't want to maybe burst your bubble about your enjoyment of 2042, but I wanted to enjoy it, and I feel like I forced myself to try and enjoy it, but it just broke me, and the game was a disaster. So with that being said, before we jump into the information, just want to mention, if you guys enjoy the conversation, enjoyed this video, want more Battlefield news, or any other game I cover on the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button and bell to be notified for when I do drop more content. So first things first, Zampella with IGN gave us some good quotes, honestly, about kind of the whole goal and things like that. If you guys don't know Zampella, he is the head of Respawn Studios, or Respawn Entertainment specifically. He is also a former lead for Call of Duty 4 and Modern Warfare 2, and the only reason he is no longer there is some ugly corporate financial workaround of not trying to give him a bonus he negotiated before the release of Modern Warfare 2, all that stuff. Don't even go about that, but he is someone in the shooter genre that you at least pay attention to, because he has a proven track record of delivering. I know Apex is in a weird spot, but I kind of pushed that to the fact that it's kind of no longer his responsibility. They put out the game and, you know, gave a product that was successful at EA, and EA is just running it down the shitter. But besides that point, Zampella gave some information about 2042, and let's talk about it. So first up, he talked about Battlefield going back to its basics, and he says this: I mean, if you look back at the peak or the pinnacle of Battlefield, it's that Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4 era where everything was modern. And I think we have to get back to the core of what Battlefield is and do that amazingly well. And then we'll see where it goes from there. But I think for me, it's that peak of Battlefieldness is in that Battlefield 3 and 4 days. So I think it's nostalgia for players, for me, for the teams even. Those are kind of the heyday, although I will say 1942 also. So that quote right off the bat, I think, is great news. I say that because there is a recognition of what made Battlefield 3 and 4 is a step in the right direction. And the reason why I say recognizing 3 and 4 is really important is because the devs that worked on 3 and 4 are no longer there. And the games that are there when it comes to Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 were not perfect games. There were incredible games. They were great. But the one thing that made them great was on a foundation. Despite their bugs, despite their crashing and Frostbite engine issues, they were great as a foundation. And it's really important to kind of use that as a reference point for whatever they're going to go in this next Battlefield game. And yeah, there's more than just nostalgia too, and some of that stuff from 3 and 4 that is needed to make a great game, but having a reference like that to guide, I think, is what a lot of fans, longtime fans, at least I've said it many times talking to other people about Battlefield, is that I kind of want something in that Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4 realm of something to work with and grow from there. It sounds like that is kind of the basic bare bones core they're going for when it comes to the next game, which I think is great. He talks about map size, which I think is really intriguing because it can be spliced in both, two different ways. So here on screen is the quotes. Yeah, the 128 player didn't make it more fun. Like, doing the number for the sake of the number doesn't make any sense. We're testing everything around that's the most fun. So like you said, the maps, once they get to a certain scale, become different. It's a different play space, and I think you have to design around that. So we are designing something that is more akin to previous Battlefields, Zampella says. I'd rather have something nice, dense, really nice, well-designed play spaces. Some of them are really good. I can't wait for you to see them. So right off the bat, little background on me. I went to school for game design, I got a degree and all that stuff. I love what he is saying here about asking the question, did 128 players make it more fun? And the answer is no. I think the spectacle of it, I think that's one thing I've always stated, and I still believe, is that the overall spectacle and what it looks like on screen with all those different things is truly insane. But when it comes to the gameplay, did it make it more fun? Did the larger maps make the game more fun? Obviously, No, they did not properly test 128 players, and it showed in the map design and things like that. So again, asking did it make it more fun, I think is the best possible way to describe the reversion around 128 players for anyone that liked it. I think the overall sentiment is that 64 players is kind of the golden number for Battlefield. It has been proven over and over a long course of at least almost 2 decades now, if I'm not mistaken, about being the number that works best for the franchise, and I'm glad to see a reversion in that. Now, could we get 128 players again? Well, maybe, but in the case of this next Battlefield game, the number they seem to be focusing on is 64 players, and I think that is the best thing possible, at least on the core foundation of making the next Battlefield game. So, my least favorite thing about Battlefield 2042 got a shout out, and that is Specialist. So here on screen is the quote he said about that. So, I wasn't there for 2042. Obviously, that game was horrible. I don't know what the rationale was, but for me, it's like the team tried something new. You have to applaud that effort. Not everybody liked it, but you got to try things. It didn't work. It didn't fit. Specialists will not be coming back. So classes are kind of at the core of Battlefield, and we are going back to that, Zampella says. Thank God. I think this is something I said in Delta Force in a way. I don't like Specialists, but Delta Force Hawk Ops, or whatever the hell it's called now, was very, very good at doing Specialists, even though I don't like it. They still have a class component to them, which is somewhat nice, but I do think with that game being out there and potentially being a hardcore competitor to this franchise, it is nice to see that at the core they recognize that classes are essential, and it is true. You have 4 roles at the Battlefield, depending on the mode, depends on what you're doing, depends on the squad dynamic. Specialists did not offer any of that. You could use any weapon on any specialist, they weren't class specific, and then Specialists had class dynamics, but it wasn't good, and it just was a horrible foundation they could never course correct, no matter how hard they tried in 2042. So I'm glad to see that that is out of the realm of possibility here. Now, he also states that he doesn't want to repeat 2042 as a launch. And even though he states that it wasn't a failure of the game, I think we know it does. They want it to be good out the gate, which I think is a great quote. I mean, that's really important. That's something Battlefield has struggled to do in every game, is be good out the gate. But the difference between 2042 and other Battlefield games was that the foundations of the game were still a really good foundation to have fun and invest time in. 2042 did not have that foundation, and I think that was pretty evident. So now this last quote we're going to talk about when it comes to the next installment, or something he said to close off this little thing, was, yeah, it's definitely betting bigger on Battlefield. It's going in and expanding what Battlefield is. We have to have the core, and I think that part is really important. The core Battlefield players know what they want. They've been with us forever. They've been amazing supporters. We need to earn their trust back and get them back on our side. And then it's expanding out and getting more players into the universe and seeing what we can do. So when you want a different experience, you don't have to leave Battlefield. You can experience more things within the Battlefield universe. So we're expanding the offerings we're giving. And honestly, I'll just end on this note. This type of quote is not what I expected from something EA. I think it's a testament that Vince Zampella and Respawn Entertainment do have a little bit more say now than they used to have when it comes to EA. They have definitely done things against EA's nature and what they stated and kind of shut them up. I think Jedi Survivor was a great test, or at least Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor were great tests of, like, nobody plays single player games, and then your 2 best games you've ever dropped recently have been single player games. It's just funny stuff, but Respawn, Vince Zampella, they've been proving EA wrong. And again, I think this is the most exciting part when it comes to the words from Vince Zampella rather than the EA CEO. Now, the next part is from the Investors Day, and specifically we're going to cover the general manager right now, or EVP or whatever. He was a former person from Call of Duty. He recently left 2021. He's been a part of EA since the post, I guess you say, 2042 debacle. And some of the stuff he mentioned is that the studios, how they're iterating, playtesting. So there's going to be 4 studios working on this game. Now, DICE, the head of Battlefield from what we've known, is leading the charge on multiplayer. Criterion, another studio you guys should be familiar with, especially if you guys played the Battlefront games, is delivering content experiences across single player and multiplayer, and they are now fully integrated. Motive is bringing their rich history of storytelling and action to the Battlefield mix. somewhat single player focused. And then Ripple Effect is working on a new Battlefield experience fueled by unique Battlefield DNA that's been testing really well with players. So for one, just want to say that seemingly is going to be the Battle Royale. We'll have more information on that in another video. But yeah, this free-to-play Battle Royale experience should be intriguing and hopefully something new in the market. Now, if we're being honest, the biggest takeaway from this Investors thing, and honestly, I'm surprised we got it in the Investors Day, whatever EA was doing, was I guess you could say, the platform of playtesting, iterating, and quote-unquote keeping things green. So they prioritize, software stability, but also prioritize feedback from players. And I think a lot of people forget that some of the greatest times of Battlefield 4 was the community test server. This really fueled a lot of meaningful, impactful, and great changes to the overall Battlefield 4 experience that it seems that if we do this on a pre-launch title, or at least game like this, it's gonna do wonders. It really is the few things that make my 1% excitement and hope for this franchise go from 1% to 3%. Now, I know that's not very high, and how is this supposed to kind of urge you that this is good news? Well, this is something that clearly was not being done before, at least in the last 2 games, specifically 2042. So again, playtest, iterating, and maintaining a solid ground of constant feedback of this game is a massive step in the right direction. If you guys understand game dev, feedback from players who aren't devs is one of the most crucial things to understand of what your game got, what makes it fun, what makes it not fun. It is like 101 to game dev, and seeing them put such a focus on feedback gives me hope that this could be a really solid game right out the gate. But yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say on this video. There is hope for this franchise. I do think that the news today has really symbolized that. Now for me, again, it goes from 1% to 3%, but for some of you other guys who are more hopeful and maybe not as broken as me with this franchise, maybe this can make it from a 50% to a 75% excitement level potentially. But yeah, whatever it may be, curious to hear you guys' thoughts on this news and information. If you guys enjoy the content, enjoyed the information, be sure to drop this video a like, helps out the video a ton. And for more content from me, be sure to hit that subscribe button and bell to be notified for when I do drop more content. But until then, hope you guys have a good one. ShadowNinja here, and I'm out.